Hi, this is Bob Ray at Ray's Tennis. This is part 4 in a 4-part series on how to pick a racket. And if you don't consider the string as part of the racket, you cannot get or may not get the performance that you expected out of a racket. I'm going to describe the different types of rackets and the different gauges and which are the advantages of each. Historically, gut was the dominant string for play because they didn't make synthetic guts that played well. Modern technology has enabled us to almost duplicate gut as far as playability. When we talk about synthetic gut, in the industry we're talking about a specific type of string, not just something that is not gut, but something that is constructed in a certain way. It's made out of nylon 6, that's the molecular structure, and usually has a solid core and a double weave multi-filament outer core. That's what we usually mean when we say synthetic gut. Most popular synthetic gut is Prince. Comes in different gauges, 16 and 17, even 15 light. I'll get into gauges. This is gut, very expensive stuff. Comes out of an animal. I mean, usually out of a cow. That's when they say cat gut, what they really mean is cattle gut. And they're just, people think we kill cats to play tennis with, but that's not the case. It's cattle, and it's a byproduct. They kill it for the meat, and they use the intestines. It's called the golden thread, a certain part of the intestines that they pull out and process it into gut. The cheapest kind of string is not just basic nylon, and it usually is either a multi-filament or a few filaments, like 8 filaments or so. And that's mainly an inexpensive string, and we don't use it too much in stringing in our pro shop, but in places where money's critical, it's more popular. Synthetic gut, when you take nylon and make very minute microfilaments, like thousands of filaments, and weave them together, that's called multi-filament. It's still a synthetic gut, but we call it multi-filament. The most popular one of those is NXT. Actually, Technofiber makes most of these, and they make multi-filaments also. There are slight subtle differences between multi-filaments, but generally they play better than synthetic gut or nylon. They play about as close to real gut as we're going to be able to get. Then we get into the stiffer strings. The least stiff of the stiffer strings is Zyx. It wasn't real popular, but a lot of players do like it. We usually blend it, which means we put the Zyx on the mains, because it's a stiff, durable string. When I say stiff, I mean that it gives you control. There's not a lot of power to it, but it gives you a lot of control. And stiffer strings usually last longer. Multi-filaments usually don't last as long as synthetic guts or as long as nylons, but they just play better, so people like them. We put these Zyx on the mains because the mains is what mainly hits the ball. When a string job wears out, usually the first string that breaks is the main strings. So you put a durable string on the mains and a softer string on the crosses to get more playable. The next up is polyester. Your better players use with polyester. It's a stiff string. It can be hard on the arm. Any stiff string can be harder on the arm than, say, a multifilament. This is RPM Blast by Babolat. It's what Nadal is using, so therefore everybody wants to use it. But most polyesters, well, let's break it down. A monofilament polyester is kind of dead. So they put, like multifilament synthetic gut, they put the polyester microfibers together, small fibers twisted together and woven together, and it plays better. It's still pretty stiff, very durable, but it plays better. There's a lot of these. They're all pretty comparable. Babolat just happens to be the 5-ton gorilla in the room as far as promotion, because of Nadal and because they got a lot of money. You can save some money by getting some little bit off-brand polyester. And finally, there's Kevlar. Kevlar is the stiffest of all the strings, and it has to be blended. If you put it in both directions, it'll kill your arm. It's not too easy on the arm as a blend, but we usually think of polyester as Pro Blend by Prince, and we put the Kevlar, usually 17, 16 gauge, and a 16 gauge cross made out of synthetic gut. As far as gauges go, well, let me back up here. The stiff strings are used for control. It's usually the better players that want control. The average player shouldn't use it. It probably will hurt their arm, and it's not worth the risk. You don't benefit as much as a good player would. They can get more out of it. You can vary the gauge from 15 to 16. The higher the number, the thinner the string. 16, 17, 18, 19. 20 is badminton string. And usually the 18 and 19 are really stiffs because they have to be more durable. If you put a synthetic at 19 gauge, it would just break immediately. Then tension is the other variable. I mean, let's get back to gauge. The thinner the gauge, the more power, and the more spin, and the more touch, and more everything. But it breaks quicker. So people compromise. Most decent players play with 16 gauge. Ones that don't care about the money go to 17 or 18. A little old lady that barely hits the ball hard can get away with 18 gauge and never break it, ever. Tension. The higher the tension, the more control. The lower the tension, the more power. Now you can get it so low that you don't get any power, and you can get it so high it would probably break the racket or your arm. But we string the average racket at about 58 pounds. When you go to a Kevlar or a polyester, you have to drop the tension 10 to 15 pounds. Most people get psyched out when they go from synthetic to polyester, and we're telling them to go down 10 pounds, and they say, well, I've always used 60 pounds. Well, we string the polyester at 60 pounds, and then they come back the week later and say, my arm's killing me. Well, you didn't listen to us. We wanted you to go down to 50 pounds or 45, and that's what happens to you. Anyway, your game is unique, and what string you use will determine pretty much what you get out of a racket. So you need some advice about your game on how to best improve your game using different strings, different tensions, and different gauges. Thank you.